Hey guys, what's up? Today I bring you 12 games that promise to be as good as or even surpass Final Fantasy. So without wasting time, let's start the list with Lost Soul Aside, an action RPG developed by Ultazero Games and published by PlayStation. The story follows Kaser on his journey to save his sister Luisa and humanity from dimensional invaders known as Voidrax. The game stands out for its impressive visual style and a dynamic and fluid combat system. The aesthetics of Lost Soul Aside are heavily inspired by the Final Fantasy series, particularly Final Fantasy XV. This is evident in the character design, settings, and the overall atmosphere of the game. The influence also extends to the epic narrative, with a protagonist seeking revenge and salvation, and a combat system that prioritizes combos and spectacular actions, common characteristics of the Final Fantasy action RPG franchise.
Let me be your vengeance. The blade in your hand. You never wanted to be a hero. But for humanity's sake, you must.
The Witcher 4 is the next chapter in the acclaimed action RPG series developed by CD Projekt Red. The game marks the beginning of a new trilogy in the Witcher universe, based on the books by Andrzej Sapkowski and the game franchise that has become a landmark in the industry. The narrative promises a darker and more brutal tone, emphasizing the idea that monsters come in all forms. Humans can be as dangerous as creatures. The game promises a crueler dark fantasy world, with complex moral choices and significant consequences. Just as Final Fantasy is known for grand stories with complex characters, The Witcher 4 focuses on a new saga with Ciri, exploring themes of destiny, morality, and interpersonal conflicts in a fantasy world. CDPR's emphasis on narrative choices echoes the emotional depth seen in games like Final Fantasy VII or 15.
You cannot change anything!
She went to go to the woods. The chosen one. His tradition.
Oh no, no, no.
It's all we wanted. For her to go to the woods. To go to the gods.
Gods? There are no gods here. There are only monsters.
Ashes of Elrant is the official expansion of the acclaimed indie JRPG Chained Echoes. The story takes players to a new region called Elrant, described as a place where nothing is what it seems. The plot focuses on the Crimson Wing clan, who answer a call for help from Elrant, involving a new threat and revelations about the past of important characters. More than 40 new monsters and bosses have been added, offering unprecedented challenges. The combat remains turn-based, with the overdrive system, which requires strategic balance to maximize damage and avoid penalties. Chained Echoes is often described as a love letter to 90s JRPGs, and Ashes of Elrant continues this tradition. Matthias Linde, the lead developer, grew up playing and creating fan games with RPG Maker, drawing inspiration from titles like Final Fantasy VI. The vibrant landscapes, with rich color palettes, evoke the settings of games like Final Fantasy IV and V. Dragon Quest I and II HD 2D Remake is a Square Enix project that brings together the first two games in the iconic Dragon Quest RPG series, originally known as Dragon Warrior in the West, in a single package, reimagined in the HD 2D visual style. This style combines stylized pixel art graphics with 3D environments and modern effects, popularized by games like Octopath Traveler and Live Alive. Square Enix seeks to bring these classic works to a modern audience, maintaining the nostalgic charm but with visual and gameplay improvements. The game is aimed at both longtime fans who want to relive the classics and new players attracted by the success of Dragon Quest XI and the HD 2D visual style. Its inspiration from Final Fantasy, especially Final Fantasy VI, is evident in the HD 2D visual style, which was shaped by the high-quality pixel art of the 1994 classic.
And all alone.
Etheria Restart is an upcoming turn-based strategy RPG developed by XD, scheduled for release in 2025. The game takes place in Etheria, a virtual metropolis created after a global catastrophe that forces humanity to transfer their consciousnesses to a digital world. Although the official game description does not explicitly mention Final Fantasy as inspiration, several elements of Etheria Restart echo common characteristics of the Final Fantasy franchise. The premise of a virtual world, the presence of beings with special abilities, animus, the strategic turn-based combat system, and the narrative centered on a great threat that needs to be defeated are all recurring elements in several games in the Final Fantasy series. The visual aesthetics also show similarities with some titles in the franchise, especially regarding the style of characters and settings. Only time will tell if the game can be as good as Final Fantasy.
そはいかれてる。即戦即決だ。奴らの思い通りにはさせない。
貴様らの時間をいただくとしようか。外からの支援は頼れない。私を楽しませなさい。
お前たちには重要な役割を与えてやろう。
Fuga Melodies of Steel 3 is the third and final game in the Fuga Melodies of Steel series, a tactical RPG developed by CyberConnect 2 and released on May 29, 2025. The game continues the story of the young people who use a tank called Tyrannus to fight against the Burman Empire. The central premise involves the search for Malt, a character who mysteriously disappears, leading the children on an adventure to infiltrate the heart of the Empire. The game features a turn-based tactical battle system, focusing on strategic decisions and resource management. It is not necessary to have played the previous games in the series to understand the plot. The game has a clear inspiration in classic JRPGs, such as Final Fantasy. Fuga 3's combat system uses elemental weakness mechanics and combos, similar to the weakness exploitation mechanics in games like Final Fantasy VII Remake, where hitting an enemy's weak point can delay their turn or increase damage. Lost Hellden is an upcoming 3D Japanese RPG, developed and published by Artisan Studios, with a planned release in 2025. The game stands out for its unique artistic style, with hand-painted 2D environments, but with 3D exploration and dynamic lighting and weather effects. The narrative follows Seifel and his allies in a mature story, full of choices and consequences. The battle system combines action and strategy, allowing for different playstyles. The inspiration of Lost Hellden in Final Fantasy is evident in several aspects. The development team includes veterans who worked on titles in the Final Fantasy franchise, and the hand-painted artistic style, with highly customizable characters, evokes the classic aesthetics of some games in the series, although with a more modern approach in terms of graphic technology. The presence of a battle system that mixes action and strategy is also a common element in many recent Final Fantasy games. SacriFire is a pixel art RPG scheduled for release in 2025 that is heavily inspired by 1990s RPG titles, including the Final Fantasy series. Although not a sequel or spin-off of Final Fantasy, SacriFire clearly draws inspiration from the aesthetics, atmosphere, and narrative structure of the classic games in the series. The presence of an epic war between divine and demonic forces, a protagonist with a spiritual journey, and a unique combat system are elements that echo the established Final Fantasy formula. The choice of Motoi Sakuraba, a composer who worked on other games inspired by Final Fantasy, reinforces this connection. The game stands out for its unique combat system, not yet fully detailed, and the elaborate pixel art. The visual aesthetics refer to classic RPG games, but with a graphic modernization that seeks to enhance the visual experience.
I could have timed that better. I've got to be faster. There are things that the living cannot understand. Death is only the beginning of the final voyage. It's just not that time yet.
Threads of Time is an upcoming turn-based RPG developed by Rio Games and published by Humble Games. Although not a game in the Final Fantasy franchise, it is heavily inspired by classic Japanese RPGs, including visual and gameplay elements reminiscent of titles like Chrono Trigger and Final Fantasy. The inspiration from Final Fantasy is evident and manifests itself in the overall style of the RPG, the turn-based combat system, and the visual aesthetics. The pixel art, combined with the use of Unreal Engine 5 to create vibrant environments, seeks to balance retro charm with modern graphics. The promise of a strategic and turn-based combat system, with the possibility of creating devastating combos, also refers to the classic battle systems of the Final Fantasy series. Now it remains to be seen if the game can really surpass the classic Final Fantasy games. Trails in the Sky First Chapter is a remake of the first game in the acclaimed Trails in the Sky series by Nihon Falcom. The story follows Estelle Bright and her adoptive brother Joshua as they embark on their adventures as junior bracers in the Kingdom of Liberal. What begins as simple missions evolves into an intrigue that threatens the kingdom. The game features a turn-based combat system, with the possibility of a new real-time combat system, as well as enhanced high-definition graphics. Although there is no direct mention of inspiration from Final Fantasy in the promotional materials, Trails in the Sky, and consequently its remake, share common characteristics with the Final Fantasy series, especially the classic games. Will this game be better than the classic Final Fantasy games? Leave your opinion in the comments.
slay you.
Wuchang Fallen Feathers is set at the end of the Ming Dynasty in a fictional region called Shu, inspired by historical and mythological China. The game mixes historical elements with dark fantasy, presenting a world devastated by warring factions and a mysterious disease called feathering disease, which transforms its victims into monstrous creatures. The player controls Bai Wuchang, a warrior pirate who suffers from amnesia and is affected by this disease, which also grants her supernatural powers. Final Fantasy is known for its epic stories, with emotionally complex characters and richly detailed worlds. Wuchang Fallen Feathers does not lag behind, presenting a deep narrative centered on Bai Wuchang's journey to recover her identity and save Shu, with choices that shape the destiny of the world.
Dares to question my will, standing in the way of my redemption.
The last game on the list and one of the most anticipated of the year, Phantom Blade Zero, is an action RPG developed and published by S-Game with a planned release for PlayStation 5 and PC. The game features a semi-open world with multiple paths, secrets, and level design reminiscent of classic Souls games, but without the extreme punishment of enemy respawning after death or rigid checkpoints. Final Fantasy is known for its bold visual approach, combining fantasy elements with technology, as in Final Fantasy VII or Final Fantasy XV. Phantom Blade Zero takes a similar approach by mixing wuxia with steampunk and cyberpunk, creating a visually rich and unique universe. The use of Unreal Engine 5 for impressive graphics, as seen in the trailers, echoes Square Enix's pursuit of cutting-edge visuals in titles like Final Fantasy VII Remake. Now I want to know your opinion. Which of these games can surpass Final Fantasy? So that was the video. If you can and want to contribute with any amount, I will be extremely grateful. Each super thanks makes a huge difference and motivates me a lot, besides that you will be mentioned in the next video. I'll leave it here. Stay with God, and until next time.
行走江湖，从来就不是什么快意恩仇，而是忍耐、煎熬。我们只要等待就够了。钓鱼的时候，除了等待，还能做什么？